Hello. Today, we continue discussing one of the biggest scandals in modern religious history, the crimes of Theodore McCarrick, a man who rose to the very heights of the Catholic Church. This is part 2. In the previous part, we followed McCarrick's rapid rise from a New York priest to a cardinal of the Catholic Church, and the first rumors of misconduct, rumors that were ignored or dismissed in the 1990s. Our main source is the Vatican's 449-page McCarrick Report, released in November 2020, supported by investigative work from the New York Times, the Washington Post, The Guardian, and National Catholic Reporter. In 2000, Theodore McCarrick was serving as Archbishop of Newark, a charismatic figure known for his fundraising and diplomacy. But the whispers about his conduct with seminarians were growing louder. Cardinal John O'Connor, the powerful Archbishop of New York, wrote a 6-page letter to the Vatican, warning that McCarrick's history of improper behavior could cause scandal if he were promoted. Yet, in November 2000, Pope John Paul II appointed McCarrick as Archbishop of Washington, D.C., one of the most prestigious positions in the U.S. Church. A year later, in 2001, McCarrick became a cardinal. The Vatican's McCarrick Report 2020 placed direct responsibility on Pope John Paul II. The report bluntly stated the Pope made a serious mistake by relying on inaccurate and incomplete information and believing McCarrick's denials instead of credible warnings. Let's break this down. In 1999, when McCarrick was being considered for posts in New York or Washington, O'Connor's letter detailed reports about him. These weren't rumors. They came from a respected cardinal with deep Vatican ties. But because McCarrick denied it in a personal letter, Pope John Paul II believed him. The report reveals that John Paul II found McCarrick's denial convincing, partly because of his own past. As a young priest in Poland, he had faced false accusations from the communist regime, which made him skeptical of unproven charges against clergy. The Washington Post noted that this instinctive trust in priests was a hallmark of his papacy, but it came at a devastating cost. No formal investigation was carried out, and McCarrick's denial was accepted at face value. The decision was disastrous. By 2001, McCarrick was celebrating Mass at the National Shrine in Washington, meeting presidents and shaping church policy. National Catholic Reporter went further, arguing that McCarrick's rise even cast a shadow over John Paul II's sainthood. In 2014, some letters to NCR even called for reconsidering his canonization, a radical idea, but one that showed the depth of betrayal many Catholics felt. Was John Paul II careless, or simply a product of his era? The Vatican report suggests both. In the 1990s, the Church was still struggling to confront clerical abuse, and John Paul II was also weighed down by the fallout from the Boston Globe's 2002 investigation. In 2005, John Paul II died, and Pope Benedict XVI assumed the papacy. McCarrick, now the Cardinal Archbishop of Washington, remained prominent, but new allegations were surfacing. By late 2005, new details about McCarrick's behavior had reached Rome, prompting Benedict to take notice. Here's what happened. In May 2006, Benedict approved McCarrick's replacement as Archbishop of Washington, appointing Donald Wuerl as his successor. This was part of an urgent effort to quietly remove McCarrick from prominence. Later that year, Papal Nuncio Archbishop Gabriel Montalvo was instructed to tell McCarrick to lead a more discreet life and avoid public appearances. But McCarrick ignored it.
He continued to travel globally, celebrate public masses, and wield influence as a retired cardinal. In 2009, he presided over Senator Ted Kennedy's funeral, an event broadcast nationwide. The Washington Post called this a stunning gap in oversight, noting that Benedict's sanctions were so weak that McCarrick faced no real consequences.
Why didn't Benedict do more? First, the allegations involved seminarians, adults, not minors, which the Church tended to view as moral failings rather than crimes. Second, McCarrick's influence was immense. The New York Times described him as a global power broker with ties to Vatican officials, American politicians, and international leaders. Confronting him risked a PR disaster for a church already battered by scandal. National Catholic Reporter was harsher, saying Benedict's inaction reflected a culture of avoidance. A 2008 memo from Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re, head of the Congregation for Bishops, admitted McCarrick's improper behavior but advised against formal sanctions to avoid public embarrassment. Benedict's half measures highlighted a recurring theme: the Church's reluctance to confront powerful abusers. As The Guardian put it, the McCarrick case reveals a Vatican more concerned with appearances than accountability. By failing to enforce even mild restrictions, Benedict let McCarrick operate unchecked.
The role of money and power. Now let's talk about money. Theodore McCarrick wasn't just a spiritual leader. He was a fundraising machine. The Washington Post revealed that between 1991 and his 2019 defrocking, McCarrick distributed over $600,000 from a special charitable account, the Archbishop's Fund, to more than 100 Catholic clerics, including Vatican officials involved in reviewing misconduct claims against him, such as Cardinal Angelo Sodano and Bishop Stanisław Dziwisz. Father Peter Daly wrote in National Catholic Reporter, "Money always talks. McCarrick almost made it sing." The Post detailed how his checks, often for thousands of dollars, went to bishops, cardinals, and charities tied to Vatican officials. These weren't small gestures, they were strategic investments in loyalty. McCarrick raised millions for Catholic charities, schools, and Vatican projects, earning gratitude and influence. He was a master networker, using wealth to build alliances inside and outside the Church. This financial clout made him untouchable, even as rumors swirled. His power also came from political and diplomatic ties. As a Vatican envoy, he met world leaders like Fidel Castro and Bill Clinton. In Washington, he was a familiar figure at political events, advising on immigration and religious freedom. This influence created a shield. Challenging McCarrick meant taking on someone with friends at the very top. When allegations arose, they were often handled informally, through private conversations or letters, rather than official investigations. The report cites a 2000 memo from Bishop James Quinn, suggesting that McCarrick's accusers should be silenced to avoid scandal. National Catholic Reporter argued that this culture of favoritism was McCarrick's greatest asset. He was a fixer, a negotiator. His ability to navigate the Church's political maze allowed him to escape scrutiny. Fast forward to 2010s and the arrival of Pope Francis. Elected in 2013, Francis was hailed as a reformer, promising to clean up the Church's scandals and restore trust. But McCarrick's case complicated that reputation. Francis was not aware of specific abuse allegations until 2017, when the Archdiocese of New York received a credible report that McCarrick had abused a minor in the 1970s. Unlike his predecessors, Francis acted decisively. In June 2018, he suspended McCarrick from public ministry. In July 2018, he stripped him of his cardinal title. By February 2019, McCarrick was defrocked, the first American cardinal ever removed from the priesthood. But here's the catch. The Vatican report confirmed that rumors about McCarrick's conduct with seminarians had circulated in Rome since 2012, before Francis became pope. The Guardian called Francis's response a turning point, marking the first time the Vatican released a comprehensive investigation into one of its own. The New York Times noted it revealed the truth but stopped short of fixing the system. For victims and advocates, Francis's actions were too little, too late. In the final part, we'll hear from survivors who broke the silence, examine the consequences, and ask what the Church must do to rebuild trust.